To scare her timid best friend, a woman kept shaking an inflatable device at a height of 600 meters. Her friend was terrified. Little did she know, the nails holding the ladder had already come loose from all the shaking. Once they reached the top, the two girls excitedly took photos to show off, completely unaware that they were about to be trapped high above the ground. As they prepared to head back down, disaster struck. Fortunately, Nia grabbed the rope just in time, otherwise, Belle would have fallen hundreds of meters to her death. To pull Belle up, Nia wrapped the rope around a pole and pulled with all her strength. Belle steadied herself and climbed carefully upward. But then another accident happened. Nia slipped, causing Belle to fall again. Luckily, Belle braced herself with her feet just in time, avoiding tragedy. After the scare, Nia became much more careful. With the rope's help, Belle kept climbing. After their desperate struggle, Belle finally made it safely back to the top. But the terror left her shaken for a long time. Though Belle had survived, getting back down was now a huge problem. The entire ladder was gone, leaving only a small platform at the top of the tower. Worse, there was no cell service at that height, so they couldn't call for help. Belle panicked, but Nia did her best to calm her down. Just then, Belle noticed a box below. They opened it and found a pair of binoculars and a flare gun. With these two items, their chances of being rescued greatly improved. Nia looked around through the binoculars, but saw no one. Then Belle realized their backpack hadn't fallen, it was hanging on a lower platform, with all their supplies inside. If they could get the water from the backpack, they wouldn't die of thirst. But Nia stopped her, saying it was too risky and they should just wait for rescue. Belle had to agree. The two waited on the tower for hours. Nia kept watching for rescuers but saw nothing, only a camper van nearby. Belle quickly took the binoculars, only to find no one around the van. Their brief hope was crushed. Nia scrolled through her phone's social media, seeing likes and comments. Suddenly, she had an idea. "We have no signal up here, but we definitely do below the tower," she told Belle. "If we lower the phone down, it can send our message." They had a 15-meter rope. They tied the phone to the rope with rubber bands, typed a distress message, then slowly lowered the phone. As soon as it got signal, the message would send automatically. But even after lowering the rope all the way, there was no confirmation. Desperate for signal, Nia climbed onto the last remaining part of the ladder, let go, and hung suspended 600 meters above the ground. Still, no signal. Her fingers were slipping, so she cursed and climbed back up. She pulled the phone up, the message hadn't sent. Just as they were at a loss, Belle realized something. If they knew there was signal below the tower, why not just throw the phone down? As long as it didn't break, the message would go through. Nia took off her shoe and put the phone inside, but it still wasn't safe enough. Then Belle looked at Nia's top. Without hesitation, Nia took it off, wrapped the phone inside, and stuffed it all into her shoe. Then she threw it off the tower. It was their only chance. Trapped 600 meters high, Nia stared through the binoculars at the shoe as it hit the ground. She had no idea if the phone inside would work. Just as they were losing hope, Belle spotted a man at the bottom. They screamed at the top of their lungs, but they were too high for him to hear. Luckily, his dog noticed the noise from above, but the man called the dog away. Desperate, Belle took off her shoe and threw it down, but it didn't catch his attention. She threw her last shoe, and this time it hit a metal frame, making a loud noise. The dog ran over, and the man noticed. He picked up the shoe, confused about where it had come from. The girls waved and shouted wildly, hoping he would look up. But he didn't hear them. He glanced around and left. Belle quickly grabbed the flare gun, ready to fire. But Nia stopped her. He couldn't see them from where he stood. Firing now would waste their only flare. Then Nia noticed the camper van seemed to be preparing a barbecue. She decided to wait until dark to fire the flare, so it would be much more visible. They waited on the tower until nightfall. Belle immediately fired the flare, but it misfired. The man was about to go inside the van. If they missed this chance, they might never be saved. Belle tried again. A bright flare shot into the sky, catching the man's attention. Nia waved her phone from the tower. The people on the ground saw the signal. The two girls were overjoyed, convinced they were saved. But reality was cruel. The man picked up a crowbar and smashed the van's window. He was a thief. After stealing the vehicle, he even flipped them off from below. The girls on the tower were devastated. Not only were they still trapped, but someone had just lost their car. Worst of all, they had no more way to call for help. By the next day, still no rescuers came. That meant the phone had broken, and the message never sent. If they stayed like this, they would die. Nia suggested climbing down to get the backpack. If the rope reached it, she was confident she could pull it up. Belle begged her not to risk it, but Nia insisted if they didn't take the risk, they would die anyway. She secured the rope and began descending. Almost immediately, she nearly fell. But Nia was calm and skilled, and managed to hold on. She inched downward until she was near the backpack yet still several meters out of reach. Then Nia made a crazy decision. She unclipped her safety harness. With no protection at all. In an instant, she reached for the backpack, still missing it by a little. To get it, she swung herself through the air. The woman leaped hundreds of meters above the ground, barely landing safely on the small platform. The near-death experience left her trembling. She carefully looked down. One wrong move, and she would have been killed instantly. Once calm, Nia quickly opened the backpack and drank desperately from the water bottle. Belle watched from above, swallowing hard. Getting back up was now her next challenge. The rope was just out of reach. She used a selfie stick to attach the backpack to the rope. Then, risking her life again, she jumped and grabbed onto the backpack. One slip, and she would die. But she was strong and held on tight. Belle pulled with everything she had, while Nia climbed as fast as she could. Just meters from the top, disaster struck again. Belle stared at the tight rope, terrified. She leaned over carefully. Nia was still hanging on, but her hands were badly torn and she couldn't climb anymore. Only Belle could pull her up. Belle hauled the rope, wrapping it again and again around the pole. Slowly, Nia rose. Finally, after a brutal struggle, Nia was safe. Seeing her raw, bleeding hands broke Belle's heart. Relieved that Nia was alive, Belle drank greedily from the water bottle. Then she found a piece of paper in the backpack, wrote their location and a distress message, and attached it to a drone. If they could fly it to the hotel on the road below, they would be saved. Belle flew the drone toward the hotel. But before it got far, the remote showed low battery. If she didn't turn back, the drone would crash. She rushed it back and caught it just before it fell. The drone was safe, but they had no way to charge it. Without power, they still couldn't send help. And to make things worse, they had finished all the water. Without water, they would die of dehydration. Then Nia noticed a signal light on the pole. If Belle climbed to the very top, she might be able to charge the drone from it. Despite her injured leg, Belle climbed upward, screaming in pain. Nia sang to encourage her, and Belle finally reached the top. She carefully removed the light bulb and plugged the drone into the wiring. To their shock, it actually charged. Belle was overjoyed. She waited there until the drone was fully charged, growing weaker and shivering violently. The second the drone was ready, a vulture attacked her. Belle fled back to the platform in terror. Without hesitation, she launched the drone toward the hotel. Only a few dozen meters remained. They were ecstatic, but then, disaster struck. The drone was hit and destroyed by a passing car. Belle's face collapsed into despair. So close, yet so far. She looked through the binoculars and saw the driver get out, but never noticed the broken drone. The car drove away. Their last chance was gone. Belle broke down crying. They had no more tools, no more hope. Vultures circled above, waiting for them to die, severely dehydrated. Belle looked hopelessly at Nia, only to see blood all over her face. Nia spoke calmly. "I've been dead this whole time. You just couldn't accept it." The truth hit like a truck. When Nia had climbed down for the backpack earlier, she had fallen to her death on the platform below. Belle couldn't handle losing her best friend, so her mind created a hallucination. She thought Nia was still there with her. All along, she had been alone. Nia's body had already been torn apart by vultures. Now, only Belle remained on the tower. She leaned against the pole, waiting to die. Then a vulture landed nearby, attracted by the blood, and pecked at her wounds. Belle snapped awake. She quietly set down her phone, grabbed the vulture, and slammed it against the ground until it was dead. To survive, she had to eat. The vulture's flesh was her only source of protein. Half mad, she forced herself to eat. With a little energy back, Belle refused to give up. She would repeat the plan with Nia's shoe. She tied the rope to the ladder and climbed down. Reaching the platform, she quickly unclipped her harness and jumped onto it. She pulled out her phone, sent the distress message, then put it inside Nia's shoe. To make sure it survived the fall, she tucked the shoe inside Nia's remains, then pushed Nia's body off the tower. With the shoe and body cushioning the fall, the phone would not break. Once it hit the ground, the message would send. Then she waited. Hours later, her father and the police arrived, having received the message. Belle broke down in tears, throwing herself into his arms. Belle survived, but her best friend Nia was gone forever. Life is precious. Never risk it for dangerous thrills.